Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Politics Today, and in this programme we'll be discussing how one London council tried to ban Hanukkah, which is the Jewish Festival of Lights. And to discuss this issue, I'm joined today by Robert Harris, who's Voice for Justice UK, and together with Pastor Tim Gutmann from Christian Action Against Anti-Semitism. So guys, welcome to the programme. And I'll start off with Tim. It's great to have you back on this programme, Tim, and I know this has been an extremely busy time for you and your wife Hayley, and just want to say thank you for what you've done in organising these big pro-Israel get-togethers to show that demonstration of Christian love and support to Israel and the Jewish community at this time of rising anti-Semitism. So I want to thank you for that. But just share with us how important it is that Christians take political action and get out there and demonstrate what is right in a spirit of love, joy and peace.
Absolutely. So, for ourselves, we organised this event a couple of weeks ago, and the idea behind it is that the Jewish people hear and see and know that there are Christians that stand with them, that love them, that, I've heard a lot of Christians say, oh yeah, we support Israel, we pray for them. And our challenge is, we need to let them know that. And we always bring it back to, that the Holocaust, a large percentage of Nazi Germany was actually evangelical Christian, I think 70%. And the silence and the inaction of the majority in many ways enabled them to do what they did. And so we say, let's learn from that, let's make a noise and let the Jewish people know we love them.
Thank you for also giving me a platform as well. That's kind, thank you.
And
Robert, it's great to have you back on the programme. I must say you did a great job on Behind Headlines when we marked the 60th anniversary of the assassination of JFK, and now we know that for Politics Today I have a resident expert in American history and American politics, which is great as considering next year is a presidential election year, so appreciate that. And just give us an update on the really important work you do, Robert, with Voice for Justice UK, particularly this commission of inquiry looking into the persecution and marginalisations of Christians in the workplace.
Yes, well, it actually is going to be hearing evidence from Christians within the UK who have faced discrimination in all contexts, not just the workplace. Recently we had testimony given by Isabel Vaughan Spruce, who's a pro-life leader. She prayed silently outside an abortion clinic and on 2 specific occasions was arrested, was put into a police cell and eventually released. Last week we had Dr. Aaron Edwards, who was a theology lecturer at an evangelical college, Methodist college, and he sent out a tweet on the subject of homosexuality, which the college didn't like. He was sacked for that. And this week we've got Harry Miller, whose case has been reported throughout the world. He sent a tweet that was considered to be transphobic. He's an ex-police officer, by the way, and his case went all the way to the Court of Appeal and set a huge precedent on legal issues relating to freedom of speech, hate crime, non-hate crime incidents, and so on. So we've got lots of people lined up over the coming weeks, many of whom their cases have not even been heard about in the media. So there's a lot going on.
Wonderful. And Tim, ever since we learnt about the horrific terror events committed by Hamas, the worst genocide in Israel's history, the worst massacre of Jewish people in one single day that we've seen for over 80 years, and the Holocaust that happened to those southern Israeli communities back on the 7th of October. We've seen since then almost a 500% increase in recorded anti-Semitic instances, and probably the percentage is probably even higher of those who haven't been reported. But share with us the hurt and the pain caused by Havering Council that they plan to ban Hanukkah this year on the grounds that it was flaming hatred and tensions.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard this, I couldn't believe it. I thought, is this for real? And as you mentioned, the Jewish community are suffering worldwide, but in our country, the anti-Semitism has skyrocketed. And a lot of Jewish people we spoke to said, we feel alone, we feel in fear. A lot of people are having to hide their kippahs or their, Jewish symbols. And here we have a council in the UK banning Hanukkah. I mean, they haven't banned Christmas or they haven't banned the Muslim holidays or Hindu holidays. They're picking on the Jewish people and they're banning Hanukkah, a festival of lights. And this is a dark time. And this is a time definitely to be celebrating light, and the Jewish community need this. And to pick on the Jewish community, to ban Hanukkah, that hurts. I mean, that's deep.
And Robert, please share with us your thoughts on the process of why the London Council of Havering would actually ban the annual menorah lighting ceremony outside the town hall, with concerns that it would inflame tensions and also that the menorah itself could actually be vandalised, bringing deep hurt and pain to the Jewish community already suffering with unprecedented levels of recorded instances of Jew hatred and pretty much living in fear at this current time.
Well, it's difficult not to see this as motivated by anti-Semitic sentiment. I mean, one doesn't want to get into the heads of other people, but I can't think of any other motive behind this. This is not exactly a textbook case, is it, of local government fostering good relations with minority groups. I think it's quite disgraceful what has happened, even though there was a U-turn, but they have set a precedent for this, I think. And also this idea of inflaming community tensions, usually the context to speak in that sense is it brings in ideas of extreme far-right groups who are going to go on the streets calling for foreigners maybe to go back to their countries of origin. You can imagine how that would be a very clear example of how people within a public space will inflame community tensions. But this example of a Jewish festival that goes back just a little over 2,000 years, the council have paid for and designed the actual menorah. Why would they want to ban that for?
Good question. This is what we want to learn in this programme, so it doesn't happen again. And Tim, share with us the outcry if a London council or any other council across the United Kingdom decided to ban a Muslim festival or a Hindu festival, and the outcry that would cause, and saying that we're doing this because it could inflame tensions, when it seems they don't care whatsoever about the sensitivities of the Jewish community, who are incredibly loyal citizens. Not only that, their contribution to British life is incredible considering the size of their population.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, for centuries now, they've thrived here, but they've been a blessing here. We always talk about that. And you mentioned yourself, if they try to ban a Muslim festival, they wouldn't dare do that because they know there would be, outrage in the streets, and people would fear for, individuals would fear for their life or whatever. And it feels like they're picking on the Jewish community, an easy target, because the Jewish community. I mean, I've been to many Jewish rallies, and I've been, on the marches, and they're very peaceful. And they're very, they're very British, very civilised, very gentle. There's no hatred, there's no anti-anything. And so it seems like, and we discussed this last time with the two-tier policing, it seems like it's easy to pick on the Jewish people, and they wouldn't dare do this with anyone else. And I feel like it's, we've said before, the Jewish people are like the canary in the mine, and how they treat the Jewish people now, one day it will come on the Christians as well. And it's outrageous. It's two-tier again, not policing in this case, but it's two-tier dealing with peoples, with the minority groups and with the faiths.
Absolutely. And Robert, please share with us the kind of hurt and the pain caused to the Jewish community of, and particularly this time of huge increase in Jew hatred we see in this country, that Jewish people cannot celebrate their festival of lights, which is Hanukkah. And of course, this is the amazing story of the Jewish defeat against the Maccabees, the Greeks, and the miracle of the Second Temple with the menorah burning for 9 nights.
Yes, that brings up many issues. I mean, we've heard recently about Jews being afraid to go out on the days of the protests because if they wear any visible signs of their Jewish identity, they feel they could become targets. So this is another example of something that is really validating, giving empowerment to anti-Semites. And of course, we live in a country where we hear a great deal about diversity and equality and inclusion. Now, what does that mean? Inclusion is taken to mean, all groups of different identities are celebrated and everyone has room within society to be heard. Diversity is the idea of celebrating differences between different communities, different identities. But here is a council in modern 21st century Britain that is actually saying, no, the Jews cannot celebrate their identity in public.
Yeah, extraordinary, isn't it? And Tim, share with us, in this current climate of hate, the importance of the Jewish people being able to celebrate Hanukkah and having one of the menorahs lit each day to represent the Festival of Lights, also known as Hanukkah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hugely important that Jewish people get to express and to visibly be able to celebrate their festivals, express their Jewish identity without fear of harm. We're constantly being told that anti-Zionism isn't anti-Semitism. So what's this about? They're banning a Jewish festival because of what's going on in Israel. I mean, it's clear, the link here, between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. Jewish people have been celebrating Hanukkah. Jesus celebrated Hanukkah for millennia, and it is a symbol of light over darkness. In our rally that you spoke at, which we really appreciated, by the way, one of our big things was holding up lights and torches to show, we're not here to meet hate with hate. And we're not here to meet this kind of like spirit of anti-Semitism with more, back at you kind of thing. What we're here to do is to shine a light, and it's a message of love. And that's what the Jewish people, that's what Hanukkah is. It's light, it's love, it's celebration of their culture and their people and God's hand on them. And I think it's massively important that they get to do it, and they get to do it safely. Otherwise, we're failing as a society, we're failing as a country. If the Jewish people are in danger and they cannot express their holidays freely, they cannot wear their kippahs freely, then we're failing as a society, and it's a big, big test for us. Like I said, it's like the canary in the mine. This is, where are we as a society? And, we need to look at these issues that affect the Jewish people, because it really is symbolic of where we're at, where our policing's at, where our government's at, where our councils are at.
Absolutely. And Robert, what do you make of the extraordinary comments made by Manoa Ali? And he's known for his work on counter-terrorism. And he described the plan to cancel Hanukkah is absolutely awful and a form of shameless appeasement. Says the decision only appeased the Jew haters than standing with the local Jewish community. And considering that this guy is a Muslim, shouldn't actually the council and also other councils across the UK take note, if they try and ban Hanukkah, that here, sense of reason, it requires a Muslim voice to speak up for the Jewish community?
Well, he's got it spot on, hasn't he? I mean,
Absolutely.
Appeasement is always a sign of weakness. And in this particular context, appeasement is actually empowering the anti-Semites. It's giving them a sense that their voice is all powerful. And the fact that they've now done a U-turn, okay, it's great that they've made the right decision eventually, but I think they've left a trail of damage. It's actually giving a sense to the extremists that actually their voice counts, and I think that's very dangerous, and I think the council needs to think very carefully, all councils across the country, about these sorts of actions and the impact that it has on not just the Jews, but also on any group who feels that they are marginalised. Christians, we've spoken about this in other contexts, who feel that they're being targeted. So this is a very dangerous thing in modern 21st century Britain, when human rights and respect for all people should count.
Absolutely. And Tim, what would you say about the actions of Havering Council that are actually undermining religious freedom? Because the council leaders fear that a visible display of Jewishness would anger their own local Muslim population.
I've said this before, and actually there's so much happening now, and we've talked about this, that is, it's frightening in a sense, and at the same time it's infuriating. There's a lot of duplicity, and in one sense, a lot of people, there's a lot of voices saying, on Monday they're saying there are no hostages, on Thursday they're saying look how well Hamas treats the hostages, and the UN women saying we stand for women's rights and we will be a voice, and then the next time 52 days it takes them to say anything about what happened to the Israeli women. There's a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of duplicity, and the council, what they did is hypocritical. They're saying they're doing it for peace, but you're banning a Jewish festival. You're picking on the Jewish people, and it's outrageous. And
Yeah, and you've got a kind of a military dog tag that I know your wife Hayley wanted you to kind of read out. So
that's right. Yeah, she said make sure it's seen. It says bring them home. And this is about the hostages, and we're going to keep wearing this and keep praying every day till all the hostages come home. Remember, there's been women and children, there's elderly, and there's hundreds of men still out there in the tunnels. I think over 160 still, so we're still praying for those guys to be.
But Robert, aren't we seeing a kind of bigger problem with local councils, and that's taking on foreign policy issues? I mean, we've had councils try to incorporate the boycott, divestments and sanctions to boycott Israeli goods and services, to stand with the Palestinian solidarity movement and giving into that pressure. And really, local councils should all be about running local services well. Doing a good job for their electorate rather than indulging in the whole complex arena of the Middle East.
Well, Michael Gove has actually said that councils should not be putting out their own foreign policy. This is what the UK government does, not local governments. I think this is more of the background of some of the anti-Semitism that is prevalent at local government level. And again, this is only giving a sense of the Jews are being marginalised. I mean, they're already experiencing a fragile sense of security within this country at this very moment. Since October the 7th, it's got significantly worse. And we know the stats in this country, in France, in many other countries around the world, anti-Semitism attacks have gone through the roof. People just need to recognise that fact. It's a fact that is right in front of them. People need to recognise that. And these actions are just going to intensify what is an already fragile sense of security for the Jewish people.
Absolutely. And Tim, for example, if we look at your ordinary Jewish school, for example, it's like a fortress with barbed wire armed fencing, security guards at the front entrance, every Jewish pupil having to go through airport security with their bags checked and everything else, and anyone coming in and out of the school needs to have that security checks. We see with the great job being done by the Community Security Trust that provides protection for the Jewish community, that literally armed guards outside every synagogue, every Jewish educational centre, and now Havering Council are saying, or did say, that we're going to ban Hanukkah this year. How does that bring security to the Jewish community, who already feel very scared and very vulnerable, and also puts in a lot of question about the future of British Jewry, doesn't it? If they cannot be protected by the government, and there's only so long they're going to put up with these security measures, all because they're Jewish and no other reason.
Honestly, I've never heard so many Jewish people say, we're thinking maybe we can't stay here anymore, maybe we need to go to Israel. And I remember in 2021, there was this car that went through the Jewish community there, but there was also a car that parked at a primary school and was yelling abuse at the children. And even in this incident, in the last few weeks, we've had a car park outside a synagogue and again, yelling and throwing things. I mean, what it says to us, if we can't protect our Jewish community, and as a pastor, I see this as like a kind of like spiritual test for a nation. And it's like, how you treat the Jewish people, God's people, I mean, the people of God, who will come under attack because, bring it back spiritually, say Revelation 12, Satan hates the Jewish people. They gave the world Jesus, they give the world so much blessing. And if we can't protect them, and if they're not safe to meet, if they're not safe to go to school, children, for crying out loud, then what it says is, I think it says a time may be coming when there might be more and more British Jews choosing, we can't stay here. And I think that's damning on us as a nation. I think it's a massive failure of society. And as a pastor, I say this is a failure as well of Christians. We need to make our voice heard.
Absolutely. And Robert, share with us how pressure and common sense prevailed, and that Hanukkah will now go ahead in the London borough of Havering, but due to a lot of press coverage and also a lot of pressure on behalf of the Jewish community.
Well, I'm glad common sense has prevailed, but really, why did it get to this? It should never have got to the stage where the council had to enter into talks with the Jewish leaders to come to some sort of resolution, which they have come to now. It should never have come to that. And as I say, I think it's already done damage for the Jewish community that they've had to go through this. So it sent all the wrong signals,
Yeah. And Tim, share with us how, as Christians, we need to be vocal and loud regarding support of the Jewish community, particularly this time of rising Jew hatred, and we need to show that Christian support and love to the Jewish community. And you guys do it so well.
Yeah, listen, at this time, unprecedented levels of anti-Semitism and unprecedented levels of Jewish people feeling alone and feeling fearful. This is a time to kind of like stand in this gap and say, we love you, we stand with you, you're not alone, we're together, shoulder to shoulder. So, and you need to make your voices heard. And so I know there's a lot of people that love the Jewish people and love Israel and they pray behind closed doors. But this is why we do our events, so that it can be seen and heard. We do it publicly. But there's other ways, you know, Christians can be writing letters. I mean, I've heard so many stories of Jewish people that have received a letter from a Christian and it's brought them to tears. We can be writing to synagogues. We can be, I mean, online, it's like a new pogrom at the moment. It's like if you're Jewish or if you post anything positive about Israel, the level of hate you get, I mean, we see it on our Twitter page. And but online, people can just be expressing their love and solidarity and support. It's needed now. It feels like 1930s Germany, and this is why we need to be heard, not silent. We need to be like that Dietrich Bonhoeffer who said this: silence in the face of evil, it's evil itself. Not to say something is actually to say something. Silence can sometimes speak louder than words, so let's be heard.
Absolutely. And Robert, I just want to give you a quote from Rabbi Lee Sutherland from Romford District Synagogue, who gave a recent video message. This is what he said. He said, "It was relief that the ceremony would take place. It's a great relief to us. The purpose of this festival is that everyone should actually be able to celebrate their own festivals or cultural customs freely or openly without any prejudice, barriers. And that's happening now, that the council had come to the realisation regarding these issues. And of course, what we're seeing here is fundamentally a threat to freedom of religion. If one council is saying, oh, for example, the Jewish people cannot celebrate the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah, what's going to stop another council taking the lead from Bethlehem and saying we're going to cancel Christmas this year?
Of course, one thinks about the origins of this Jewish festival in the first place, because the Maccabeans were standing up against the Hellenistic rulers that said, you cannot practice your faith, it's banned. You have to bow down to the Greek god in the temple. They refused. And of course, that was a statement of, we want to exercise our freedom. The state is not going to tell us what to do. So it has echoes in terms of what's going on right now in Britain.
Excellent. And Tim, share with us the effects that Jew hatred has on all of us, that we need to stand up to this evil and this hatred, because after all, what starts with the Jewish people never finishes with the Jewish people.
Absolutely. And, we made that point earlier. Often people would say this: first they came for the Jew, but, then they'll come for you. And the Jewish people, in many ways, they've been the subject of so much hate, historically at the hands of Christians, might I add. And nowadays, it's through the far left, if you like, this agenda and Islamism. And if we don't succeed, and as Christians, if we don't succeed in standing with the Jewish people, people often say, you know what, if they did succeed in wiping out Israel, they will come, whoever they will come for you. And Christians will be next. And they do attack, and that's why your organisation exists. They do attack Christian organisations, and Christians are being martyred all over the world today. But it's really, really key. Like, the Jewish people are, it's often said they are this canary in the mine, and if they are successful, they won't stop there. They will come for us. In fact, I don't know if I can say this, but I think it says, no, actually I do know it says this in the Quran, particularly Hamas, who follow this Iran brand of Islamism. They say that Imam won't come until the Muslims have killed all the Jews. And then he brings this return of Isa, and what he does, this return of this Antichrist figure, is that he says he kills the pig and breaks the cross, which means he will come for the Christians, you know. So it's important as Christians, we stand with the Jewish people and we show them we love them.
Robert, in terms of legislation, can you legislate against this? Can you bring laws into Parliament to prevent councils from banning religious festivals on the grounds of they will stir up racial hatred or stir up social problems for the local area, or will this lead to vandalism? I mean, can we legislate this, or is this something that's in the human heart and it's a question of council leaders doing the right thing despite any possible threats, to make sure that there is freedom of religion in this country, to make sure that those extremists that hate the Jewish people don't win?
I think it's certainly an issue of the human heart. I don't think we need new laws. We've got enough laws in the country. But certainly where freedom is concerned and doing the right thing, I think we've got everything that we need. But we need people who are exercising common sense, decency and respect, which they claim to do anyway, because all the councils around the country have their own diversity and inclusion policies as part of their operations. So you would have thought this conversation would never arise. No, I don't think we need new laws. I think we need people to just be respectful and do the right thing.
Yeah. And Tim, we're about a minute and a half of the programme to go. Just share with us how, as Christians, whatever influence we have, whatever positions God has placed us in, that we should use these positions in order to support the Jewish community, in order to support Israel. I mean, you could be in a position like Richard Nixon was during the Yom Kippur War in 1973, when a conversation with Golda Meir, when Israel was running out of tanks and weapons and armory, looked like they were losing that war in the first few days of the Yom Kippur War back in 1973, cried out to Richard Nixon, the president, and he remembered the conversation that he had with his mother, and his mother said, if you are ever in a position to help the Jewish people, you do it. Is this something that we can actually use an example to do what we can to protect?
Massively so, massively so. A lot of Christians think, you know what, I'll pray. You know, God is sovereign, and they're afraid to get involved in politics or afraid to be seen publicly. But it's really important, and there's been many cases in our history when we've had to be seen and heard. Think about Martin Luther King, think about William Wilberforce, think about these guys. And this is really, really a key time to be seen, to be heard, to do what you can to the people we owe a huge debt of gratitude to, Romans 15:27. Salvation is from the Jews, John 4:22. This is the time.
So Tim and Robert, thank you so much for being my guests on this week's edition of Politics Today. And I want to thank you for watching at home. What Havering Council did was outrageous. You cannot ban Hanukkah. You cannot ban a Jewish festival if we have religious freedom in this country. Instead, we should celebrate Hanukkah, which is the Festival of Lights. So thank you for watching this week's edition of Politics Today.